Welcome back to Prophecy Unfolding, where prophecy is truly unfolding. We're seeing so many things that are happening around the world. We look to scripture, to prophecy, and we know things are heating up. And what I wanted to do today is to bring you something I thought was very, very interesting from got him in a good friend of mine, Aaron, who has allowed me to share this video, which we done a few days ago, which is very, very good. Tying in the whole thing of the rapture, looking at like Jacob getting married to Leah and Sarah, etc. Very, very, very good. I wanted to share this, which is just keep an open eye and an open mind. I believe this is a very good video to watch. Remember to watch it all in full, so you get the full context of what he's saying and how he actually brings things together. It's very, very good. But also smash the like button so that someone who does not know Christ may come to the understanding of who Christ truly is. Remember to watch it in full, enjoy it. Aaron is one of the creators that brings a lot of fun, especially into a world that's in chaos at the moment, and brings a lot of joy when we see these videos come. Have a listen yourselves, and I'll see you again.
Looking to support this ministry? Donation links are always in the description box below. Hey everyone, it's Aaron from God a Minute. This is big. If my numbers are correct and my calculations are correct, this is big. This is bigger than the fig tree prophecy. This is a big deal. So I'm going to talk about how old was Jacob when he married Leah and Rachel. How does this affect the rapture? And before I get into that, I was watching a video a while ago, and there was an atheist arguing with a Christian, and the Christian was asked the question, if I give you irrefutable evidence that God exists, would you believe me? And the atheist said, no. And so what the Christian said is, well, then I can't even talk to you anymore because you just don't want to go on any facts. You just want to go with your emotions. And so what I say to you is what we want to do is we don't know when the rapture is, but we do want to find facts and we want to find the evidence. And if I present to you the evidence and it's true, I ask that you accept what the truth of the matter is. Okay, so because some people are going to reject this because they want to hear that the rapture is within like 10 hours or something, or 2 days. So like they don't want to hear evidence and facts and information. I'm not saying it's far away, but this is super duper cool if this in fact is going to line up with all our rapture theories, okay? So I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to walk through the age of Jacob when he married Rachel and Leah and how this affects the timing of our potential rapture. And I think it's close. It's really cool because of the facts. It's actually an exciting thing. Okay, so let me turn it around. All right, so really make sure you understand what I'm going to say in this video. I got my clipboard covering up things so that it's easy for you to track with me. So what was Jacob's age at his marriage to Leah and Rachel? And he did marry them both at the same time, essentially, probably about a week apart. I'll talk about that in a second. And here we go. Jacob's age at the marriage of Leah and Rachel. The first verse we're going to do is we're going to go with Genesis 47, verse 9. And again, please really track with me and try to understand where I'm going. We kind of have to go backwards to figure out Jacob's age when he married them. So in Genesis 47, verse 9, we have a reference point that we can start off, and we're going to go backwards. We're going to do some subtraction. You guys went to school for addition and subtraction. We're going to do some subtracting from 130. So Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. All right. So there's our starting point, 130 years. And that's Genesis 47, verse 9. So that's step one. Let's move this clipboard down now. And now we're going to get Joseph's age here and get a reference point for that. Well, it says in Genesis 41, verse 6, I'll show you that. 41, verse 46, right here. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. Now, in the 7 plentiful years, the ground brought forth abundance. So we know he was 30, and then there were 7 years in the next verse, right? And then verse 53 confirms it as well. Then the 7 years of plenty, which were in the land of Egypt, ended. So Joseph completed 7 years. So we're adding 7 to 30. And then we've got to deal with those 2 years. And that's Genesis 45, verse 6 and 11. And it says over here, for these 2 years of famine have been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And also verse 11, there I will provide for you, at least you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine left. So we can say that when Jacob came to Egypt, Joseph was 39 years old. Now we can do some simple subtraction. We can subtract 130 from 39, we get 91. Now we're getting into a really great position here, because now we can really easily figure out how old Jacob was when he married Leah and Rachel. And we're going to go to Genesis 30, verse 25. And that is over here. It says, and it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me away, that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service, in which I had done for you. So he had kids at this point when he's asking Laban to go. But after this is when he gets all these flocks and everything, okay? But so at age 91, it says right here, he had Joseph, and then he says, I want to get out of here. But we know that at age 91, that's what happens. So he has Joseph at 91, then he says, I want to get out of here. All right, so let's just go now show the rest of this clipboard here. Let's show you another verse. This is not too relative, but we do need to show it because there is another count in here. Genesis 31, verse 41 says, thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Okay, so he's been under Laban for a total of 20 years. The first 7 years he worked for Leah. The second 7 he served for Rachel. And then for 6 years he was dealing with all that flock stuff. So here's the chart now. It's going to be a little easier to see with this chart. So at the bottom here we have, he was 91 when he had Joseph, and he said, hey, I want to get out of here. And this was the point when he said, hey, I served you for 20 years. So he was 97 years old when he said, I served you for 20 years. That's 7 plus 7 plus 6 is 20 years. But this is the first time in Genesis 30, verse 25, when he says, I just bore Joseph and I want out of here. I served, essentially, he didn't say directly, I served you 14, but he's like, you know the service I've done for you, and you know I'm done. You know I've already paid my 14-year fee here. So he was 91 years old when he said, take me out of here. Take me out of here. Joseph was just born. And therefore, we can subtract 7 years from that, and therefore Jacob was 84 years old when he married both Leah and Rachel. And so that brings you to the rest of this chart. So Leah and Rachel were both married. So what he did was he met Rachel and kissed her, and that was in Genesis 29. Yes, he meets Rachel, Genesis 29. Then he talks with Laban. He's like, hey, I want Rachel. Laban tricks him, gives him Leah, and then he works for her or he has a 7-day marriage. Okay, but then he works for her for 7 more years. A lot of people get confused about that, but he worked for 7 years, had a little mini wedding for Leah, a 7-day wedding, and then had married Rachel, and then continued to work another 7 years for Rachel. So it was in this little pocket of time that is when they were having all the kids. They were having a tennis match with kids. Leah, then Rachel, then Leah, Rachel. They were having essentially bringing forth the tribes of Israel within this 7 years. And by the time they got to 91, that's when Jacob said, I want out at Joseph's birth. So if that's the case, 1948 plus 77 years is when he would have met Rachel, and that's when he would have started working for Leah. That would have been the beginning of Jacob's trouble. How about that? Israel was born 1948. That's the popular date is May 14th, 1948. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So we should be looking at Jacob in the Old Testament, shouldn't we? For the timing of Jacob's trouble. Jeremiah 30 verse 7 calls it Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble started right here when he started working for Leah in those first 7 years. Now, 1948 plus 84 years gets you to 2032. So that is when he married Leah and Rachel when he was 84. 1948 plus 84 is 2032. So I drew it in another more, square box here. I'll put it a bit closer so you can see. So Jacob was born in whatever year it was, in BC, and when he was 77, he would have bumped into Rachel, and then he worked for Leah when he was 77. Then another 7 years, he gets to marry both of them essentially. And so, how does that equate to our years? 1948, Israel is born. Jacob, Israel, right? 2025, the beginning of Jacob's trouble happens, and then 2032, the final connection with marrying the two brides, essentially, really. Actually, he married two brides at the same time, really. And so there's just so much to talk about on this theme, but I think what we have, I would love you guys to test this out and see if this is true and be a Berean about this, because if this is really it, if this is really what we should have been looking at the whole time, this is really, 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 really exciting to me. And so you guys know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Feast of Weeks 2025. I don't know if that's going to be the rapture, but I think that's the best candidate. When it says fulfill your week in Genesis 29, fulfill her week, that is the same word as weeks or week. It's the same word that you would use for Feast of Weeks. But see, there's week and there's years. There's different Hebrew letters. In fact, I'm going to show you that just to make you, because some people will say, well, no, it's actually this or that. And let me show you something. All right, here's my Hebrew Interlinear Bible. So this is the week when he's talking about the marriage week. But then he says work 7 years, and they're different words. So week is Shabua. 7 is, it looks the same, but it's Seba. And then for years, it's Sana, and that's Shin, Nun, Yod, Mem. So it says, when it's talking about weeks, it's talking about the marriage week, but then it says 7 years, specifically 7 years. It's a whole different Hebrew word entirely. And then you go back to week, and then you go back to 7 years. So it's really clear that they got married in the same, essentially probably like the same week or something like that. Probably 7 days apart. So if that's the case, then we got a really awesome foundational timeline here that is really incredible. It's actually, I was like really encouraged by this study. We don't really have much time left if this is actually it. And let me remind you a couple things too before we move on. So in 1948 plus 84 is 2032. Let me remind you that Anna the prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel, tribe of Asher, was the one that saw Jesus at the temple. She was 84 years old, I believe, representing Israel. And her name means favored, and Phanuel means face of God, and Asher means happy. So her name and the daughter of Phanuel and the tribe that she's from means happy, and favored is the one to see the face of God. I mean, they're going to be seeing the face of God at the second coming. And that's also in Genesis 32, when Jacob was wrestling with God, he called it Phanuel or something like that. Let me go get that. There it is. So just as he crossed over Phanuel, which is translated the face of God. So this is when Jacob was wrestling with God, and he called it the face of God. Well, Anna's name means happy and favored is the one to see the face of God. How about them apples? Genesis 32, 2032. That's neat. Here, I'm going to write Genesis 32 right here. Gen 32. Really parallels with Anna being 84. That's a nice little parallel. And then this video, Jacob was 84 years old when he married Leah and Rachel. And then there are 84 independent chapters in the book of Psalms. There is no other chapter from these and up where it's duplicated again. And Psalms are a little bit different in the chapter numbers because they're all independent, poems or things written by different authors and of that nature. So Psalms are just a little bit different, especially the last 84. And I showed you this chart before in videos in the past, but you can see that Psalm 132, which could represent 2032, is the biggest psalm of them all, with the most Hebrew words in them. And so it's very interesting, and it's got the words Zion in it. If you read the Psalm 132, you can see the second coming written all over it. Basically, the Messiah being anointed and being, becoming the governor and king and all that. So it's just a beautiful psalm. So let's just let's test this out. Let's really make sure that this is right. I think it is. And if this is the case, then this is a really foundational thing we're going to be bringing up a lot over the next little while. Should we be here that much longer, this is going to be one of those things. It's almost, for me, it's almost replacing this fig tree idea. I think this is a really good foundational thing. If Jacob was in fact 84, I expect Israel to see Jesus, the face of God, at 84, if that's the case. And I expect the church to leave 7 years before the second coming. And, this is one more thing I wanted to say before I go. Genesis, is it 29, maybe 28? We have such an odd thing that is really worth talking about. And this is Genesis 28, verse 12. And it says, then, this is Jacob has a dream. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on earth, and its top reached to heaven. And there the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. So we have this picture before he meets Rachel, before he enters tribulation, of angels coming up and down from their earth to heaven. We have this connection with earth and in heaven here, and this vision here. I find that really interesting, and so maybe we'll have some deeper studies on this theme. Could this be a rapture theme? Could this represent the rapture before Jacob's trouble started in the next chapter with Laban? Because Jacob meets Rachel and then he starts to talk with Laban over here. And so Laban representing the Antichrist. I think we have something here. So just food for thought, that there was that Jacob's ladder, that's the nickname for it. Could that represent the rapture? I'm not sure. All right, let me know ultimately what you think about this timeline. And if this is something we can stand on, this is exciting. This is like foundational excitement stuff for me. This is what gets me excited. Going into the Hebrew, going into the timelines, this is the stuff that gets me really pumped. So, test it out. And either way, please get tight with Christ. At the end of the day, my mission here is to encourage believers, help you to say things and teach things that are going to build your faith. And I also want to have everybody believe in Jesus and what he did on the cross for us, and give you facts and give you information, and hopes with the information I give you, it motivates you enough to say, you know what, I gotta figure this Jesus thing out. And so my tagline is get tight with Christ. I've got a couple of taglines, but I ultimately pray that you believe in the finished work of the cross. I pray that you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus died on the cross for your sins. Romans 10:9-13 is a great place to start. If you want to join our Discord, please join the links below. If you want to support the channel, links are below. I've got a Telegram group, I've got a Facebook group, and all sorts of other things. Merchandise thing too, if you want t-shirts and mugs, that sort of thing. Okay, guys, love you guys very much. Go Jesus, go. One day closer. Adios, muchachos.